Anthony Loewenstein has been travelling around New Zealand promoting his book, The Palestine Laboratory, How Israel Exports the Technology of Occupation Around the World. He claims that Israel has become the foremost weapons and surveillance technology manufacturer because it's had the Palestinians to practice on. What do you think about that perspective?
Israeli defence industries are an important part of the Israeli economy, and that includes also various systems. And of course, Israel is a country that has been in conflict, unfortunately, since its inceptions, not by any means, as Anthony Loewenstein perhaps thinks, not by any means only in terms of the need, unfortunately, to police areas of the West Bank, but also, of course, against very powerful conventional forces that Israel has gained a reputation for standing up to quite effectively. As a result, I think there is a positive image regarding Israeli defence industries in many parts of the world, and people are keen to buy. This is something which I think is an industry in which many countries are involved, and frankly I find it a little bit, let me be frank, I find it unsurprising that people who are unsympathetic to Israel will seek to kind of single Israel out, as though engaging in defence industries, when Israel does it, suddenly becomes some remarkably nefarious practice, whereas when, let's say, Australia, for example, does it, which of course it does, then it's just the run of the business of human affairs. So I think that, whilst it's an interesting subject, I would suspect that somebody who wants to portray Israel as being in some way uniquely wicked or uniquely negative because it has a defence industry and it engages in that, is somebody who perhaps whose motivations should be examined quite closely, not only in the field of defence industries, but also perhaps in terms of their broader agenda.
Because this notion of using the Palestinians as a laboratory is a fairly cynical view.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it's a very, I would say it's more than cynical. I would say it has within it an element appears to have within it an element of venomous hostility, because, I don't recall, I mean, Britain, for example, where we're currently located, has also a flourishing defence industry. And British armed forces have been engaged in various missions in recent years, in Afghanistan, in Iraq. But it would be a rather strange framing, I think, if someone were to stand up and say, well, yes, clearly, Britain has emerged as this cynical country that uses civilians as a laboratory for its defence industries. So this would be a very strange framing. In fact, I think when one puts it in that context, when one exchanges the word Israel for the word Britain, it becomes apparent just how strange this framing is. And I think what we're really seeing here is not something restricted to the discussion of defence industries. Rather, it is the common phenomenon of Israel being framed in a uniquely venomous and hostile way by people who are indeed venomously hostile to the country, irrespective actually of this or that Israeli action in this or that sector.
So would you label that anti-Semitism?
I'm not sure if it's anti-Semitism. I mean, that's a very big discussion, I would say, to say which is anti-Semitism. But certainly we can say that Israel, I very much subscribe to the view which says that Israel has become something like the Jew among the nations. That's to say that there is a certain parallel in the kind of sense that in the Western world and beyond it, for many years and many centuries, Jews found they simply could not get a fair hearing. It didn't really matter what they did. Whatever they did would be interpreted as being uniquely malicious, uniquely malignant, and uniquely deserving of condemnation. And I think we can see a very clear parallel between that sort of traditional treatment of the Jew and the way in which Israel today is singled out by the most astonishing double standards. For example, in the UN recently, the General Assembly found it right to condemn just one country for violations of women's rights, and it was not, Afghanistan under the Taliban or wherever else. It was, in fact, or Pakistan or Saudi Arabia. It was Israel. So yeah, the most astonishing double standards are displayed across the board.
For those who are not aware, why is that so astonishing? Why is Israel different to Saudi Arabia?
Oh, because Israel is a fully functioning democracy in which women play, thankfully, a very, very prominent role in a whole number of sectors. So, of course, I'm sure women don't have a 100% fair deal in Israel, sometimes they don't in Western countries, but, there's simply no comparison between Israel and a country like Taliban-controlled Afghanistan, where women are not permitted to attend school.